Hi, have you ever wondered how Minecraft mods are made? Perhaps even wanted to make your own? Well, I have, so let me walk you through my experience trying to create a randomizer mod for Minecraft. All I wanted the mod to do was randomize every spawned mob, as well as randomize the loot tables for block drops, mob drops, and generated loot in chests found naturally in generated structures. Easy enough, right? Well, kind of. To get started, I downloaded the Forge development kit and changed all the default information about the mod, such as the mod ID, mob description, author. I even made a quick mod logo in Photoshop. What is Forge? You can think of it as an intermediary between Minecraft code and the mods, sort of like a bridge between the two. It is the most well-known mod loader out there. However, there is also Fabric, a relatively new mod loader that aims to simplify the mod making process. Every mod needs a main class that registers all the changes we make. Usually, a main example class is given by the development kit. Another class we need to make will be home to our event listener. This can be in the main class, but it's better to have it in a separate class as it will be simpler to make changes later on. The event listener will allow us to listen to in-game events. What do I mean by listen? Well, that simply means to write some code that waits for that event to happen and only then executes. To randomize mob spawns, I thought I would just listen to the entity join world event. And if you don't know, an event is an action that takes place in Minecraft, usually triggered by players and other entities. The entity join world event is exactly what you think it is. It is an entity, mob, item, projectile, or any other entity joining a world. You might notice how it says entity join level event instead. Well, that is because I am using the term world to be more clear in the video, although in the newer versions it's called level instead of world, and it certainly didn't take me a couple of hours to realize that. There was also the living spawn event, which unfortunately doesn't fire correctly in the version of Forge I am using, so that's why I have to use the entity join level event. To begin my randomizing procedure, I first checked if the entity was indeed a living entity, because remember, dropped items are entities too. I also checked if it was a boss and left it untouched, because if I didn't, I would have to allow mobs to randomize into bosses, which would not be so fun. After that, I had to remove the original entity from joining the world in the first place, but then a problem arose. When I would simply remove the entity, it would get stuck in a limbo, unable to be interacted with but still visible. So I just set its HP to 0 and called functions that made it invisible and silent. But those didn't work, and you can sometimes see the old entity for a few frames before the new one spawns. So I decided that I'm just gonna fix it later. To randomize the mob, I just used an internal random number generator provided by Java, which returns a mob based on a switch statement, which is basically an upgraded version of a bunch of if statements stapled together. Spawning the newly randomized mob was easy enough, but I also had to tag the randomized summon mobs, so it didn't randomize the mobs forever, stuck in an infinite loop. There was also a problem with mobs building up, especially underwater. I believe the reason they were spawning so much in the sea was because mobs were floating to the surface, and maybe the game thought that there weren't any mobs and tried to spawn new ones continuously. So I made it so only aquatic animals can be allowed in the sea. That significantly limited the pool of mobs that can spawn in the sea, but I thought it was well worth the performance benefit. I also tagged all the mobs spawned by my mod with the tag persistent false. This hopefully will allow them to despawn. Despawning usually happens when the player gets to more than 128 blocks away from the mob, and only for hostiles like zombies, skeletons and spiders. Okay, now to loot. If you're not familiar, loot tables are files that specify what kind of drops you should get when you kill a mob, break a block, or open a chest in a village blacksmith house. To randomize the loot tables, I use the generic loot table modifier, which, if you don't know, is a way of modifying loot tables without creating a loot table file for every loot table you want to modify. To change every loot table, I just added an inverted condition for the block state of Minecraft air. That basically means that it changes all loot tables except that of the air block, which is all loot tables since air cannot be broken. The obsidian item is just a placeholder, since I'm overriding this in the code to be random. I didn't find a way to pick one of all items in Minecraft in loot tables, but this way I could filter out unobtainable items and exclude them. The current code does not factor for enchantment books and potions dropping, and thus if they are dropped they will be useless. Despite its flaws, it was an enjoyable experience to try to create a game-altering modification to Minecraft. I look forward to creating even more complex mods that add new blocks, items, or even mobs and custom structures. If you watched till the end and liked this video, feel free to press the like button. If you would like me to make more of these, press the subscribe button. And until next time, I wish you all the best.